đã có lúc em thấy yêu lo và mệt nhoài khi cứ sống trong thế giới chỉ để ảo anh. Ai cũng dối mình, ai cũng dối người. Đêm nay ta say trong tiếng nhạc dịu dàng và anh như đại bàng bay trong ánh mắt từ bầu trời. Tim em khẽ gọi sau lưng cuộc sống dối gian, những thú vui thời trang, cánh hoa em rơi xuống. Hãy cho anh một lần yêu em rất nhiều và hôn em đúng say. Mình ta như khói mây, phút giây như muốn đến lại khi đôi tay khẽ chạm vào làn da em lúc này. Oh baby, you are a masterpiece. You are beautiful, a masterpiece. Một sáng thức giấc em thấy trong gương một người lạ, làm make up make môi son em để làm gì? Che đi nỗi buồn, giấu đi nghĩ suy. Nhưng trong mắt anh em là người đẹp nhất, nên anh viết cho em một bài hát để em sẽ hiểu anh yêu em nhiều. Bỏ lại sau lưng cuộc sống dối gian, những thú vui thời trang, cánh hoa em rơi xuống. Hãy cho anh một lần yêu em rất nhiều và hôn em đúng say. Mình ta như khói mây, phút giây như muốn đến lại khi đôi tay khẽ chạm vào da em tối nay. Oh baby, you are a masterpiece. You are so beautiful, you don't know. You are a masterpiece, so let it. Hãy cho anh một lần yêu em rất nhiều, hôn em đắm say. Phút giây như muốn đến lại khi đôi tay khẽ chạm vào làn da em tối nay. Oh baby.
Yesterday morning, I started a hike. I signed up with this company called Sapa O Chao, run by local people from the area around Sapa. Sapa is a little village in northwestern Vietnam. It's a mountainous region, so we're up fairly high. It's chilly. And let's see, Sapa O Chao came pretty well recommended. A friend of mine in Beijing had taken a tour with them before, and she said it was a pretty good company. So far it seems very nice, pretty responsible, sustainable, kind of eco-tourism, responsible tourism sort of stuff. So yesterday we hiked all day. It was muddy and drizzly and pretty chilly. Today it's still chilly, but it's not drizzly, still muddy, but not nearly as muddy as yesterday. And we've seen some nice kind of rice terraces. It's been a bit misty, so we haven't been able to see too much, but still some nice, some scenic views. I'm pretty exhausted. We've got like one more hour to go, and then we're pretty much done with the hike for today. And I gotta say, I'm looking forward to it. Been able to sit down, been able to get some warm food in my tummy. Once I get back to Hanoi, I'm looking forward to taking a hot shower and a clean change of clothes. But yeah, really beautiful area. A lot of the houses around here, they don't have electricity. A lot of the kids walk like 10 or 15 kilometers to go to school. People spend a couple hours a day chopping firewood. They cook on like they burn wood, or they burn rice husks for their stove to cook food or to boil water. So it's pretty, I mean, I hate to use the word primitive because that seems so like anthropologically judgmental and kind of imperialistic in a certain sense, but definitely not very technologically advanced in a lot of areas. And I think about different things I've read online on some of the international development blogs, you know, how USAID has programs in, I don't know, countries that I don't remember at the moment, you know, kind of teaching people how to use solar cooking stoves, or you know, programs that MIT and their anti-poverty action lab, you know, with getting more kids in school. I think of parallels to rural parts of China where kids have to walk for an hour to get to school. Yeah, I wish it was sunnier and warmer. I wish it was less misty so we had better views, and warmer so that it was just plain old more comfortable. I am walking around the edge of this lake in central Hanoi. It's called, pardon my horrible Vietnamese pronunciation, something like Hoan Kiem Lake. And it's kind of the local area for old people to hang out, much like any park in a big Chinese city. Lots of Chinese cultural influences here, I'm noticing. Not just obvious things like affection for historical costume dramas or use of chopsticks. But little things, such as when people like drink together, they do a cheers. There's similar an idea of lowering the cup to show respect for the other person. I mean, 1,000 years of Chinese conquest or imperialism will do that, I guess. There's also a lot of old Chinese characters on some buildings and temples. I don't recall exactly, but I think that Vietnamese used to be written with Chinese characters before European missionaries came, and they kind of created a Latinized alphabet for Vietnamese to use. But anyway, the sort of legend behind this lake is that, let's see, it probably would have been about like 1400s or so when the Chinese were getting kicked out of Vietnam, and that would have been the Ming Dynasty, Chinese Ming Dynasty. So the Vietnamese guy who kicked them out of Vietnam, he was supposedly gifted a sword by a turtle in the lake, and then he used that sword to defeat the Chinese and make them leave. And this was the first time in like 1,000 years that Vietnam had been independent. Not really the first time. They'd had a couple of decades here and there of independence from the Chinese rule, but they were all pretty short-lived, you know, like 50 years here, 100 years there, and then the Chinese came back for a couple more centuries. It was Lê Loi, I want to say, who was the Vietnamese guy that, like the general that kicked the Chinese out. And the Chinese have tried a little bit since then to come back. It might be looking into it a bit too much to say that the Chinese attack or invasion of the 1970s was an attempt to incorporate Vietnam back into China. I think that isn't quite proper, isn't quite right. But they did attack, they did invade, and Vietnam beat them. So yeah, it's something that Vietnamese people are pretty proud of, I would say. And then the story is after the Ming were defeated, after that conquest finished, the guy brought the sword back to the lake and he gave it back to the turtle. So supposedly it's still down there.
Trong gương một người lạ là mấy cam mi kêu môi son em để làm gì, che đi nỗi buồn, giấu đi nghĩ suy. Nhưng trong mắt anh em là người đẹp nhất, nên anh viết cho em một bài hát để em sẽ hiểu anh yêu em nhiều. Bỏ lại sau lưng cuộc sống dối gian, những thu vui thời gian, cánh hoa em rơi xuống. Hãy cho anh một lần.
I am at the Museum of Ethnology of Vietnam, and I'm really excited because I'm interested in like ethnicity and identity and cultural practices. I'm interested in how those things are portrayed, especially how they're portrayed by a government or by a state to support the singular national identity of a country, but also because this place got really good reviews online. And there's a museum right here behind me, but kind of behind that there's this sort of park area where they have the architecture, sort of examples of, you know, a dozen or two dozen different subcultures, a dozen or two dozen distinct cultural ethnic groups of Vietnam. There's also a group of school children who I think have a school trip here today, which is pretty cute.
Bay trên cao xanh xanh mát, chim mênh mông ngày tháng lâng lâng trôi theo cơn gió bóng mây xa xăm miền thương nhớ vì em về nghe dòng sông thắm đỏ chìm trong màn.
At this Vietnamese Museum of Ethnology, they have like a bunch of traditional houses, some traditional tombs of different ethnic groups. It's pretty cool. It's great.
Vì em về nghe hồ xanh sóng gợn mặt trăng về khuya đồi xa chim hót chú gì như tiếng hát đời ta.
Thang Long Imperial Citadel. I'm sure that I'm pronouncing that incorrectly. Apparently it's kind of this area from which Vietnam was ruled or controlled in ancient times for several centuries. And there's not a lot of it left, which I guess is to be expected of things that are like 1,000 years old. But I wanted to share a couple of thoughts about travel in general. I think what tends to happen when I take a trip is that for the first day or two when I'm in a new area, I'm pretty excited and I go and I see or I do the things that are the highest priority or the number one on my list of things that I want to do. And then I end up having like 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 more days in that location and I just kind of get bored and restless. So I'm in that stage right now. I'm checking out like lower priority tourist areas. You know, so this Imperial Citadel that I'm going to, you know, I'm not super excited or interested by it. It's just that I have nothing else around here that I would like to do. So in thinking about this, I guess that in the future there's a couple of different options when I take a trip, when I travel somewhere. Either I go with other people, stop traveling solo, and I think that would kind of be my preferred option. I'd like to do that. But schedules can be hard to coordinate, so that's not always feasible. A second option is just to don't schedule so many days in each location. Instead of scheduling 5 days in a city, schedule 2 days for myself in a city. And then another option, well, one that I'd be quite interested in, is make more of an effort to connect with people that live in the city. When I was a bit younger, I did this through couch surfing, and it was pretty successful. I remember visiting Nanjing. I remember visiting, let's see, where else? I don't remember off the top of my head. Oh, Chengdu. I remember visiting a couple of cities, and I stayed with the couch surfing host, and I went out to dinner with them. They introduced me to a few of their friends. So it was a much more social activity. I'm sorry, it was a much more social experience. Whereas, like visiting Vietnam, I went out for kind of a couchsurfing meetup the other evening, and that was fine, but it was just a couple of people meeting for beers. And there's a limited amount of like interaction, because I'm not big on staying up late, I'm not big on drinking beer, you know, so I had a glass of incredibly cheap Vietnamese beer, but, you know, pretty superficial light conversations. So it was nice, but not quite the level of social interaction I think that I would be looking for. Anyway, I've kind of strolled up through the entryway area, and this is this kind of gate-like complex behind me, which I guess is the first part of this complex. So I'm gonna go in and take a look.
Cho em một ngày dịu dàng.
So I guess I will narrate a little bit while I'm walking around. I've noticed a bunch of cultural similarities between Vietnam and China, particularly since I'm going to old things like this place or just before this, I visited the Temple of Literature, it's called, which is basically a Confucius temple in Hanoi. Chinese characters were all over that thing. And the style of architecture, like the way the roof curved, the types of statues, the color scheme used, very, very Chinese. Which is not surprising considering that Vietnam was effectively a province of various imperial dynasties of China for 1,000 years. From, I want to say from like the Han Dynasty up until about the, maybe Mongolian Yuan Dynasty? No, I think it would have been the Ming. Yeah, I think the Ming Dynasty was the last time that the Vietnamese kicked out the Chinese and they never came back. Or at least they never successfully came back.
Trong gương một người lạ là mây cam mi kêu môi son em để làm gì che đi nỗi buồn giấu đi nghĩ suy.
Dù anh mù đôi thao nghiêng xa mờ vần vơ bóng liễu đỏ mặt hồ xanh như mơ. Dù anh mù rồi mai hay bao giờ niềm vui hay đau khổ thật đời hay mộng mơ. Dù hỏi gió chưa hề nóng bức, dù hỏi chiều đông dù hỏi mây trôi lang thang trên sông, dù hỏi mưa rơi đêm thu lồng lộng, dù hỏi tiếng xôn xao rừng vắng, dù hỏi nắng sớm nằm trong hạt sương, dù hỏi đêm rơi trăng non vừa lên đó bài hát em dành giúp anh. Dù anh mù đôi thao nghiêng xa mờ vần vơ bóng liễu đỏ mặt hồ xanh như mơ. Dù anh mù rồi mai
một ngày thôi, một ngày không khắc khoải chờ đợi, một ngày không mưa rơi buồn tuổi, một ngày không tê tái heo mây.
Cho em một ngày thôi, một ngày không có đêm vợi vợi, một ngày đôi chân không mệt mỏi, đường về không có lá thu rơi.
Là một ngày em đến không trễ hẹn cùng anh, một nụ hôn say đắm sau những lời đầu tiên.
Ngày mùa đông ấm áp trong vòng tay em nồng nàn, một ngày cho em một ngày dịu dàng. Là một ngày